Welcome to another election edition of TERF Talk Down Under. I'm Stassja and this is Ange. Hi, Ange.
Hi, how you going?
Good. Where are you?
I'm in Western Victoria, camping in a tent.
Nice.
I'm in the rec room where people will be coming in and out having cups of tea, so I've blurred them out.
Excellent. I hope they're all gender critical.
Yeah, out this way, people are gender critical. I have run into a couple of potential, people that may not agree with me, but they all even seem friendly. So I think it's a bit different out here in the country.
Nice. Yeah, I think it is too. I think, did I say this last week? Australia is full of bogans. They're not buying this bullshit.
Yeah, I'm a bogan.
And yeah, I'm a bit of a bogan. And well, let's start with Insight. So we had the SBS Insight episode where they explored the transgender issues. Now, speaking of bogans, any bogan watching that and seeing Roxy Tickle and whatever the rugby player, whatever his name was, aren't the bogans of Australia going to be thinking, this is a bit off, this isn't right, this is kind of funny?
Well, I wasn't going to watch it because I thought it would be too irritating, because the ABC is full of and SBS, is full of pro-trans propaganda. And I thought, because we'd had a really rough week defending Kath Deves, and, myself and a few others have talked about feeling just a little bit over it. And we didn't want to watch Insight because we thought it might be really infuriating. And I ended up watching it because everyone else wasn't. I better watch it because otherwise I can't talk about it. So I sat through it and I was pleasantly surprised. But the 5 seconds into that show, when they showed the trans activists, they showed autogynephiles. And 5 minutes in, I thought, they've just peaked. All the leftists that are sitting in the middle don't understand what's going on. They've just peaked them just by choosing those particular trans activists. Now, the thing I liked about Insight is that they also had a transsexual woman on them that was against men playing in women's sports. And it couldn't have been more obvious, the difference between a creepy AGP that wants to invade women's spaces and a transsexual that just wants to play sport. It was like they had done our work for us. It was great.
Was that
Pardon?
Was that the golfer?
Yes.
Talking about? Yeah.
And Holly did us proud. And she was
great
on there, wasn't she?
She was what, sorry?
The coolest person. She's sitting there in her tattoos and her docs and her bright pink dress, looking like the coolest person on Insight that night. And it was our girl, Holly, TERF Queen. So, yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. And Holly just came across as, really rational, really calm. She made her points really well. Very, very happy to have her on our team. The other really bad bit of that episode was, and I think they might have got the footage from the Hobart Forum when they had that big protest across the road from us, when they're standing around singing.
It was like they were in a cult, and they showed it. Like the things that we say that people go, oh, no, it can't possibly be true. They were actually showing it on television to peak everyone out. It was like they were crazy, crazy cult members.
Yeah, hilarious.
Our forum made it onto the news.
Well,
that you organised.
Thank you. Well, look, it was a team effort, but they didn't say it was in Tasmania, but I'm pretty sure that's where they would have got that footage from, hey?
Yeah, well, it showed our side standing out the front of the town hall holding up all the banners. Then it showed counter-protesters dancing and screaming out, trans women are women, and all sorts of crazy stuff. So, yeah, it did show both sides.
Oh, I didn't realise. I missed that bit. I must have looked away.
You have to watch it again.
Yeah. So that's happened.
And the thing that kind of made me a bit sad about that, though, is that, for me, like the big issue for me about having men in women's change rooms, services, sports, whatever, is privacy and dignity. And the thing that frustrated me about Insight when talking about sport was that they were talking only about ability and men being more strong than women. And they did not talk about privacy, safety, and dignity, which for me is the fundamental issue of excluding men from women's spaces. So that was very disappointing for me personally.
Yeah.
And I think particularly because one of the trans activists that they had on the program is in a hockey team with teenage girls. And yeah, I think that that's really important.
Yeah, there certainly wasn't any mention of Leah Thomas getting his dick out in the women's change rooms, was there? Yeah. Oh, well, our time will come. But Kath Deves, rad femmes, I'm going to say a bad word regarding journalist Samantha Maiden, who has been the one that's been digging up these old tweets. We assume that there's some trans activist out there that has just been reading every single one of Kath Deves' tweets and has been feeding it to this, I'm going to say it, absolute cunt of a journalist, Samantha Maiden.
I call her Samantha Handmaiden, and she actually blocked me for calling her a fixated tabloid hack. Now, I said that on a thing that did bring attention to the fact that I work in women's crisis services and, you know, that I'm impacted directly by this ideology, and she still blocked me. So she obviously doesn't care that men are invading women's crisis services. So she deserves a few derogatory words, but she is clearly fixated and she's very unprofessional. And she just makes up stuff, but she has done her own work for us again by posting things that she thinks is a real gotcha that has actually turned out to be in our benefit.
Like one of the tweets they dug up was about Kath talking about children with autism are highly represented in those with her. And it's like, yes, and how does this reflect badly on Kath exactly? You're just like spreading the word about the mass sterilisation of autistic kids that's going on.
Exactly. It was an own goal. It was pretty funny, actually, when I read that, because that's also an issue that's close to my heart. And it was really good to see it brought up. And I didn't expect it to be by Samantha Handmaiden. So there you go.
Yeah.
She's clearly fixated. Like, this is obviously, you know, she's had more feedback for this than anything else. But the thing that frustrates me is she's being called into all these TV programs to talk about this issue with the bias that she has. Why is someone like her in there and not, you know, women who are directly impacted by it?
Where was she on TV? Was that Insiders or something?
She was on Insiders, yeah.
I didn't watch it.
So a man and a journalist who is pro-trans were discussing it and how horrible Kath Deves is and all the horrible things she said. Now, every single person, particularly me, has said things in their life or tweeted things that if they went back through their whole timeline, they would deeply regret because it was, able to be misinterpreted. Every single person on Twitter has skeletons in their closet. And the fact that they don't acknowledge that and they're just demonising Kath Deves because of this one issue and trying to, they're cherry picking controversial things to try and, for clickbait, basically. It's just so offensive and it's so hypocritical because all the people that are demonising Kath have probably got their own skeletons.
Absolutely. And, it's made me wonder, well, what is the future of politics? Because everyone that runs for politics in the coming decades is going to have this trail of stuff that they've said online that can be dug up. I just remembered one of the Labor candidates. I don't remember his name because it hasn't been reported on much, but the story was that he years ago had been following an account on Twitter that displayed naked women holding guns. All right, and he hasn't copped anywhere near the same abuse as Kath has. It just hasn't made the news because who cares about that sort of misogyny and objectification of women? It's so commonplace.
And I've seen some of the things that people have been saying about Kath, comments about her appearance, comments about her children, highly, highly offensive, and I would say dangerous things. I've seen someone's created a GoFundMe account in an attempt to defraud people of money, saying that it's a donation for Safe Women's Sport. Like, the things that this woman has had to put up with because of this attack by all these journalists, it's actually quite harrowing, you know, and I'm really glad that as a political candidate, Kath has the support of the federal police, because I think she's actually going to need them. You know, when these people are doing the witch hunt, which is exactly what this is, they are not thinking it through the impact that this will have. We know we're dealing with a proportion of people who are highly mentally ill, and yet they're sicking trans activists onto Kath Deves and her family and anyone associated with her. It's a recipe for disaster and very, very irresponsible journalism.
Mm-hmm. The other tweet that made headlines, I'll just read it out. This is from Kath. Transvestism is very common amongst sexual predators, even serial killers.
It's fact.
And yeah, look, I think that was yesterday or the day before. I was asking people, where are the journal articles? Can you send me the journal articles? And I finally found it. It was one by Ken Zucker.
Yes.
Yeah, and it didn't talk about serial killers, but it did talk about there being a high correlation between cross-dressing and indecent exposure and spying on other people when they're having sex, like creepy stuff like that. And it's like, and you want to let these fucking guys into women's change rooms? Like, so like it you know, it's again, they're like taking it out of context and painting it as though it's this really bad transphobic thing to say, but the data actually backs it up. And if any of these journalists were actually not hacks like what you called her, you know, they would do a bit of research and find that, well, it's actually true.
I just think a future politician will just have to wear it and just go, yeah, I said some dumb shit, who cares? Yeah. Or just be completely open and transparent and say, look, this is, you know, this is my past. I mean, it seems to work for people like Fiona Patton, but she's on the good side of the left. I mean, people only use someone's past against them if they disagree with them.
It was outrageous. And let me bring up my notes. Well, let's talk about Danny Laidley for a moment.
I don't know. So Dean Laidley's the charges against the police officer that took a picture of Dean Laidley. Well, was it when he was at the MCG, or was it the original mugshots?
I think it was the original when he got arrested. Yeah.
His charges have been dropped, so that's pretty cool.
I couldn't believe that. Like, I didn't realize they were going for criminal charges against the cops.
Their jobs.
That is outrageous. Like, it just seems so disproportionate to what taking a photo and sharing it. Like,
so
crazy.
Between a group of friends, and you know, like, but it's just like the fact that it was an image. Like, obviously, you know, if they'd walked into the locker room and said, "Oh, did you see who we had in tonight? He was dressed like a woman," you know, so it was going to happen anyway. But the fact that it was an image that got shared outside their group, and that's it. You know, if you share an image privately, that's not great. But it's the fact that it got shared publicly by someone in that group that caused all the kerfuffle. But that wasn't the intention of the person that shared the image with his friend. And it was the friend who sent it public and caused this big kerfuffle. Now, I'm 100% convinced that Laidley only transitioned because he was trying to get out of the crimes that he'd committed. And and now he's like a public figure. He's getting millions of dollars for a book that he's written. He's in the tabloids every 5 minutes. He's got a career of being a famous trans person. He even got to, as a recently convicted domestic violence perpetrator, he even got to toss the coin at the women's AFL match. So, you know, he's built quite the career off of the back of this leaked photo that the police took of. So it's good to see the police win one back. I'm no fan of the cops, but this was a bit, you know, out of context. Like a lot of stuff about that, it's hyperbole. Like the, you know, everything with the trans stuff's over the top. It's, you know, taken to the extreme, and it's glad that some of these little things are bringing everything back to reality.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I can toot my own horn. I got an article published in the Spectator. That was sort of backing up Kath with the tweet she got criticised for about kids being sterilised and surgically mutilated. I got some likes amongst my crew. I was happy with that.
I shared it to everyone I knew and go, look, it's Stassja, it's my co-host.
Yeah, cheers. And look, just the last couple of days, we've had 2 current Olympians come out, and Dawn Fraser, which is huge, speaking out in support of women's sport, and, you know, men shouldn't be in there. So that's massive.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, I'm going to say it, Kath Deves has done us all a favour here in Australia. Like, she's copped the brunt of this, but you know, we're already seeing that it's given courage to these athletes to speak out, hasn't it?
It has.
Fantastic. And even, yeah.
I should said, you know, Kath's a whistleblower. Like, you know, regardless of her political affiliations, Kath will be remembered as a whistleblower.
Yep, yep. And even Catherine McGregor, who is a somewhat well-known trans identified male here in Australia. I think he even has his own show on Sky News now.
Yeah, he's brought in as a guest, like he's a cricket commentator as well. So, yeah, I'm still a bit grumpy with Catherine because he's been out saying, oh, you know, I believe that I shouldn't have played against women in women's cricket, right? And he's semi-retired, so he's not, you know, he's not playing the big league or anything. But, you know, I've seen him at women-only spaces. And so he's a bit of a hypocrite. So I still think, you know, I shouldn't have played sport, but I'll just go to all these other things, and I'll just go to the women's bathroom, and, you know, so he's trying to hedge his bets, I think.
Yeah, I've seen this described by someone else. He wants to position himself as he's one of the good trans people. He doesn't want to disrupt women's rights or anything like that. And he's safe, and so he should be allowed into women's spaces, but not those other trans people who are Fruit Loops and like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, but the thing is that none of them have come out and acknowledged that there's, you know, not different kinds of trans, but do you know what I mean? Like none of them have come out and acknowledged that there is even that Richard Pusey is not trans. Like, none of them will ever say, well, that person isn't trans, or that person shouldn't be in women-only spaces. It's like, come one, come all. You have to accept all of us unconditionally, no matter what we look like, no matter what we say. If we say we're a woman, then we're in. And that's the ideology, that's why we oppose the ideology so strongly. Because there's negotiation, there's no safeguarding at all.
In other news, Woolworths, in some kind of advertising thing, used the phrase "people who menstruate."
And they got some backlash.
Yeah, big backlash, I heard. What a bunch of idiots. I think that was the Herald Sun reported on that.
Stuck into Kath Deves. Susie O'Brien. She got stuck into Kath Deves. So Herald Sun's generally quite conservative, but, you know, they will publish things that are more on our side of things, but yes, they will also stick the boot into Kath about being transphobic.
Yeah. What was the last thing you said? Sorry.
Everything's transphobic.
Yeah. There was a really painful article in The Age where it was written by 2 academics from Monash University.
Were they men?
Yeah, they were both men. And they had like surveyed female athletes, and their findings were that the majority of female athletes support the inclusion of transgender women in women's sport. It just made me so angry. What I would like to know about that survey that they did was, what was the age range of the women? If it's all young women, then yeah, they've been indoctrinated with this shit, haven't they? And
True, because if they were in their sporting club and interviewed like in a group, no one's going to speak out. Like, you know, you're not going to, if you've been told by the coach that you have to be open to having trans identified males in your team, you're not going to say, oh no, I oppose it. So the context is really important, how they approach these people, where they found them, were they in a group, were they, you know, interviewed individually, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And the second thing I'd like to know is what level of education did those women have? Because if they're university educated, well, they're likely to have been indoctrinated with all this, aren't they? I think our guest is having a bit of trouble joining.
I have joining too.
Yeah. She popped into the waiting room for a second there, but now she's gone. So we'll keep chatting. But that article, it was only 39% of the female athletes surveyed thought that males or trans women had an unfair advantage over the women. Yeah.
Well, how many people were interviewed, did you say?
Pardon?
Did he say how many people were interviewed?
No. Someone has tracked down the original study, and I just have to read through his notes because he went through it. He's an academic and he's gone through it for me. So we'll see. I'll do a post about that eventually. Yeah. But good grief. We've got women saying that there's no difference between male and female bodies.
This is the thing, you know, sometimes I just take it back to that. I'm like, it's just insane.
Yeah.
You know, it's worse than flat earth because it's denying what's in front of you. At least with the thinking the earth's flat, it's not frigging in front of you, you know?
Yeah.
And gaslighting, and it upsets me so much. It really does, to be told that what I'm observing and sensing is the opposite. Nah, not having it. There's kids hanging around, so if you hear me yelling at them, it's just because they're noisy. Yeah.
In one of Samantha Maiden's shit pieces on Kath, halfway through they had a poll like, should males be allowed to compete in women's sport? And 97% said no. And yet here's Samantha Maiden's article still running with the line that, like, pretending that Australians are on board with this nonsense.
No, that would have been so funny because she would have seen that. That's really funny.
Yeah.
So you're going to break your big news now or after our guest?
After our guest, I think, or it might come up while she's here with us. Yeah. And I'm bringing her in right now.
Hey.
Today we have the wonderful Rachael Wong from Women's Forum Australia joining us. So we had a lefty on last week, which was Nina Valens. And hi, Rachael.
Hi, how's it going? Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I might just plug these headphones in somewhere. I might just try and cancel out some background noise. How are you both?
Hi, we're good.
Good. Just catching up on the horrors and the great things of the week. Now you've been on Sky News yesterday.
I was, and I've just managed to get the clip, so I'll upload that later on. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought it might have been. You know, sometimes when you're sitting there, especially when you're in front of, you're not with a person, right? You're in front of a camera. Like, I always feel like I'm coming off like a bit deranged or something, like a bit, you know, because you're kind of just like staring into this. Anyway, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So I look forward to sharing that with you later on.
Excellent. What did you get to cover?
So basically it was about Kath, Kath Deves, and they were just sort of asking me about just the article that I'd written about how, you know, people are trying to silence her. And I guess I sort of got to talk a little bit about, the unsafety and the unfairness of males competing in women's sport, the fact that the majority is behind Catherine and her message, the fact that the reason they're coming after her so hard is because she's actually been effective, and they know that, if she's allowed to run and actually get elected, then, you know, she's going to be even more effective in this area. So, yeah, a few things like that, I guess.
Yeah, excellent. I'm looking forward to watching it.
Mm.
Now, tell us, did you have a peak trans moment?
I don't know if I had. I think the issues always sort of concerned me, but I think the first time I kind of spoke out about it publicly and kind of I guess this probably was my peak trans moment, when I realized just how bizarre it was and how much it was starting to influence, I guess, just the general popular culture, was probably when Caitlyn Jenner was named Woman of the Year. So that was, I think, in 2015 or something like that. And at the time, like, I don't actually remember there being a lot spoken about this then. I mean, you both might have been a bit more sort of entrenched in this issue than I was back then, but I hadn't heard a lot about it. And I just saw this Glamour I think it was Glamour magazine or something like that, with this announcement. I was like, what? Surely not. Like, this is crazy. And I remember posting about it on Facebook, and just having a very, very lively discussion with my vast array of different types of friends that I have on there. So yeah, that was the first time that I ever sort of spoke out about it and sort of really realized, like, you know, how bizarre things were kind of getting. But yeah, that was probably it for me.
I remember, you know, in the gender critical groups, every now and then someone will ask the question, what was your peak trans moment? And in the comments, someone was talking about Bruce Jenner, but she was saying that because he had some kind of reality TV show around his transition, she said it was when he was getting instructed on how to walk as a woman, and this woman just went, what? No, this is no.
No, appropriation of womanhood. I remember someone said this to me. Yeah, anyway, it's probably a bit controversial, but it's an appropriation of womanhood.
Definitely.
Yep. Agree completely. So how do you think Kath's doing?
Look, I mean, I haven't had a lot of I've had a little bit of contact with her personally, just to kind of give her, you know, reassurance and to let her know that there are a lot of people, you know, behind her on this issue and who are just really, you know, disgusted with the way that she's been piled on. And I know that she's very, very grateful for all the work that, you know, everyone's doing to kind of to set the record straight and to defend her and to defend the issues that she's sort of been speaking out about for a while. But I think in terms of the eye of the public, like, I think, there's been this media pile-on. There have been these sort of trolls and these people who are just clearly out to get her. Like, there are a few journalists I can think of in particular who just seem to they've just like a dog with a bone, and it's just like, oh, anyway. But I think it's actually backfired. I think that the fact now that she is a household name in Australia and people know about her overseas as well, all the issues that she cares about so much and that we care about so much, and now out in the limelight, they're front and center. You know, everyone's talking about them, you know, the politicians, people in the general public. I was in my Uber on the way home from Sky last night, and I told the guy what I've been doing, and I was like, you know, have you heard of Kath? And he's, oh yeah, heard of her. So everyone knows about it. So I think it's backfired spectacularly, and I think and this is obviously what they're afraid of. This is why they were trying to silence her, because they knew that once the general public got wind of things, then these issues would all be out, you know, laid bare, and people would be starting to push back and raise the concerns that she legitimately has as well. So I think while the past week must have been absolutely horrific for her, I think, you know, now that there are more public figures speaking out, there have been politicians, there are obviously all these wonderful female athletes. I think both of you watched the SBS show as well this week, which I was actually very pleasantly surprised with. I thought it was actually done pretty well, given the sensitivity of the issue and given, you know, how it's been portrayed in the public thus far. I thought it was actually pretty good. We had some great spokespeople on there. So yeah, I think that overall, even though there's been that, you know, period of just, like, I guess, pain and anguish probably for her, I think, I reckon she's, you know, going to come out on top with all this. And I think no matter what happens, whether or not she gets elected or not, she's already done such a service to women and children, and just, you know, this cause in general. So
God, if she wins, it's going to be so satisfying.
That's right. And that's what I love about this. Like, obviously we're from like opposite sides of the political spectrum. Like, look, I wouldn't say I'm aligned with a particular party, and I think I've said this to you before, Stassja. Like, I'm an issues voter, and sure, I would lean more conservative, but you know, there's no one who I'd be like, yes, you know, that's my party. But I just love that it's united women and people across the political spectrum. Like, it's just an issue that everyone can get on board with, the sports issue, and even, you know, the other sex, gender related issues as well, because it's just such common sense. And it's just, but unfortunately, until now, you know, there obviously has been the silencing, because, you know, people do get this type of pile on once they speak out about these things. But now that, you know, people, you know, one after the other are starting to say something, I think people are sort of starting to get a bit more courage and sort of realizing that actually, no, they are part of the majority. And the fact that they've been told they aren't for so long is, yeah, I think that perception's changing.
You know, I kind of wondered if Scott Morrison and the other two that Liberals that picked Catherine for Warringah, I kind of have wondered, did they do this because they just wanted to test the waters to see how the media would respond to the issues and see whether it was yet safe for the Liberals to come out with a proper position on this stuff? What do you think?
I don't know. I actually am not sure. Like, I feel like if that's what they were doing, like, it's an interesting strategy and has potentially worked to their favour. But look, I don't know. I think that they probably saw her as someone who was, you know, very intelligent and presentable and articulate, and who would be an asset to them. But I definitely don't think they would have predicted what happened in the last week. Like, I think there was always going to be backlash, because, you know, these are sensitive, controversial issues, and the way that the culture has been dealing with them has not been good. So there was always going to be some kind of backlash. I don't know if they expected it to be that dramatic. But yeah, I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think it deliberately. I think that they actually saw what happened in the UK, and that they had Kath on their radar, obviously, because she has a lot to offer the party. But I think they saw what happened in the UK, and they thought, if we don't do it, this issue is going to be bubbling under the surface for the next 4 years. We've seen what's happened in the UK, where they've forced it to the surface. Boris has spoken out in defence of women, and it's been unanimously supported. I think they hedged their bet, but they made the right decision. And I think they consciously chose Kath without knowing about the specific comments that she made. They knew that as a co-founder of Save Women's Sports, that the issue would be brought into the public light. I don't think that they realised that people would go through her tweets and cherry pick, you know, offensive comments and make a big hullabaloo about it. I don't think they backlash, but I definitely think she was chosen because of this issue, because they saw what happened in the UK.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And I've said this to people who are involved in politics. Like, this is actually a winning issue, because the ordinary person can get on board with it. Like, so, yeah, no, I mean, look, it's a good strategy if that's what they've done.
Because people complain that the two parties represent the same thing, that there's no real choice, because they're both, you know, greedy and capitalist and whatever. You know, there's generalisations about the major political parties. However, sorry, there's people in the background. I can't hear myself talk. However, Sam, I've lost my train of thought because I can hear kids' voices. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. Well,
I might move.
Yeah, do if you need to. Well, Rachael, tell us a little bit about Women's Forum Australia. How long have you been up and running, and how's it going?
Yeah, so Women's Forum Australia has actually been around for about, what are we now, 2022? It was founded in 2004, so it's for a little while. Obviously, had different people involved with it during that time, running it and so on. Am I breaking up, am I?
Yeah. We missed the year. I couldn't hear. What year was it founded?
Oh, am I back now though?
I
I can hear you.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, is my video not working very well? Oh,
yeah.
this might happen. This is very frustrating. I wonder if I can.
So
We'll persevere.
Maybe I can. Let me just try and change my connection. Let me just.
Oh,
yeah, it's the funky Melbourne weather interfering with the service.
possibly.
God, I have no idea what I was saying before.
Oh, it's distracting. We need a studio, Ange. We should crowdfund for a studio.
Well, I've actually got an outbuilding that we could use as a studio. We have to crowdfund to get someone to come in and fit it out for us. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make it the acoustics right, the lighting right.
Yeah.
Maybe we could wallpaper. We could do that bit ourselves, make it look pretty. But because we're women, that's what we do.
Sorry, Rachel. You could. Am I back now? Yeah, no, that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see how we go. So I was saying it was founded in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously has had different people involved during that time. And I came on board about 5-ish years ago, probably even longer than that now. So we're an independent think tank and we do research, education, advocacy around issues affecting women and girls, particularly trying to push back against behaviours and practices that are harmful and abusive to them. And so obviously the extreme gender ideology, which is affecting just almost every facet of life, has been of big interest to us because of the way that it impacts women and girls across the board. And obviously you both know well about that. But yeah, we deal with lots, like a very broad spectrum of issues, mainly social issues. I mean, obviously we will sort of look at ones that are a bit more economic focused every now and then, but it's sort of things like prostitution, surrogacy, abortion, sexualization of women and girls in advertising and media, what else? Pornography. So yeah, it's quite a broad range of things.
And do you call yourself a feminist?
I do, yes. And it's a funny one because I do, and I always have, but every now and then, depending on what kind of group you're presenting to, like, if I'm giving a talk or if I'm talking to someone, some people, they don't like that term. They're like, especially some people who maybe are a little bit more conservative, like they maybe don't have like the best understanding of what feminism is. And look, there's definitely been some I don't know, I'd use the word toxic feminism, but there's definitely been certain aspects of feminism in our culture more recently, which hasn't been very good. But I definitely call myself a feminist. And yeah, I think the feedback has kind of sometimes been from people like, oh, doesn't that make, doesn't kind of labeling yourself like that or breaking people into groups like that, isn't that like a bit divisive? And I'm like, well, no, if you actually understand what feminism is, and it's about, actually looking after the rights of women and girls and sort of pushing things forward for them. And it's like, I think some people don't understand that we still need feminism, and we very much do, because there are still so many areas in our society where women don't have equality, or where women are more disadvantaged, and so on. And I think it's totally legitimate to have people advocating in different areas of society for different people, and to kind of identify more with maybe the issues that they're passionate about and so on. But yeah, no, I would call myself a feminist. I know, obviously there are different understandings maybe of what that term means, but I think broadly speaking.
Great. Have you been called a TERF?
I think probably in social media comments and stuff like that. I'm just trying to think, odd little message here and there. I think I've been relatively lucky in terms of not copying anywhere near as much flack as someone like Kath. I mean, obviously her profile, even with Save Women's Sport Australasia, was a lot bigger in terms of those kinds of issues, whereas obviously for us it's one issue among many. But I mean, look, like yourselves and some of the other women who work on these issues would say, you wear that kind of term like a badge of honor, because it means that people know what you're about, and they're only trying to shut you down because they know that what you're saying, well, I don't know if they know what you're saying is right, but they're obviously scared that what you're saying is going to have some sort of impact. So that's why they use the slurs. I mean, it's the same with any issue. Like, the only reason people resort to name calling is because they can't actually attack your argument. It happens all the time. So, so yeah, it's funny because I feel like the term TERF used to maybe come across a lot more insulting, and obviously you still know it's an insult, but I don't really take it like that.
Yeah, agreed. So who do you think's going to win this election? What's your spider sense tell you?
Gosh, I have no idea, to be honest. Honestly, I think it's anyone's at this point. Like, which isn't very spicy or very helpful. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, my Uber driver thought it might be Labor, but I think he just thought that because Liberals had 2 terms and was trying for a change. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that kind of mentality. Not saying I'm sort of really particularly happy with either of the major parties, but sometimes, I mean, just the fact that we need to change isn't necessarily always the right reason to choose another party, you know what I mean? Like, there has to be something a bit sort of, I think, stronger than that. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it could go either way. And I do think, though, depending on which party gets behind this issue, and I saw, Stassja, today you've launched that Respect My Sex campaign, which I'm very, very excited about. And I think that if politicians actually get behind this, I think that could actually like make a big difference for them. And I think it's about them realizing that actually it will make a difference. And I think, as the next couple of weeks go on, I think they are going to see that more and more, which is fantastic because maybe they actually will make some substantial changes in these areas for women and girls. That's the hope, obviously.
Well, look, we haven't talked yet about the Respect My Sex campaign, so I'll just do a little spiel right now. So we're piggybacking off the hard work of the UK feminists and gender critical women who did the Respect My Sex If You Want My Ex campaign. Maya Forstater was one of the women leading that, and a couple of other groups over there. So I got permission from them. They're like, yeah, go for it, run with it. Whipped up this website, got 4 spokeswomen ready to hit the news and speak about the issues. Karen Lisignoli, the WA Girl Guides CEO that got sacked, we've had her on the show before. She got a picture in the Australian today. The article was on the front page of the printed edition, which was
so good,
pretty exciting. And I thought, oh shit, we're going to get TV interviews out of this. Not a lot of bites so far. A little bit of interest. Sky News. Karen also went on 6PR radio this morning over in Perth. And she's going on Sky News at 5:30, but I'm not sure if that's Perth time or our time here on the East Coast. But I think so the gist of it is, for those watching, look up the candidates that are running in your electorate, email them. We've got a form letter email you can just copy and paste from our website, which is respectmysexaustralia.org. And we're asking them questions like, do you really think that men should be playing in women's sport? Like, just really obvious stuff. And I did it today. I emailed my candidates. I haven't had any responses, but I couldn't find one of their email addresses. But I could find this woman's mobile phone number. So I rang her up to find out what her email address was, and we ended up having this half-hour conversation. Her name's Lisa Stark, and she's running for Pauline Hanson's One Nation party.
Oh no!
She was totally on board.
That's awesome.
It was so funny. Yeah. She was very easy to talk to. I'm not endorsing One Nation, but and then one of the questions that we're asking is, should lesbian women have the right to events and services free from men who call themselves lesbians? And she sort of went, what? and I said, well, you know, lots of trans women are actually heterosexual and they call themselves lesbians. She's gone, are you serious? So she had no idea that that's going on. So really good opportunity for Australians to put the pressure on candidates and let them know that this matters to you. Yeah. Sorry, that was a big spiel.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I've seen the website and the brochures and they look fantastic, like very simple and just very, yeah, like very obvious questions that most people should sort of, you know, be able to understand and get on board with. And no, I think it looks great. I'm very, very excited. I really hope there's some more coverage of it. It definitely deserves to have it. I think I actually mentioned Sally and Karen last night when I was talking about the fact that Catherine's situation is not isolated in the sense that women are being cancelled like constantly. I mean, the last time I talked to Chris Kenny on Sky was when I was talking about Anna Kerr getting kicked out of her office last year. So it's just like ongoing. So yeah, no, this campaign's fantastic, so needed, and it's been doing so well over in the UK. So hopefully we can kind of get the same kind of response here as well.
Yeah.
And on all the social media, like we're on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen the Facebook page yet.
Actually, I haven't made one for Facebook. I was just going to use the coalition page. I mean, we've already got 6,000 followers, so I think we'll just do it through there. Yeah. But Twitter's a different story. Yeah, and look, the article in the Australian, I had a scan through the comments on the Australian, and you know, I know it's a conservative leaning newspaper, but it's just overwhelmingly in our favor. And you know, one of them even said, oh, finally the real feminists have arrived, or something like that.
That's one thing that like really irks me, actually. Like every now and then they'll be like, I mean, look, obviously, yeah, there are definitely plenty of feminists and plenty of women who have spoken out publicly.
Oops, you froze on an unfortunate frame as well.
No, let me turn it off.
Yeah, switch.
Can you hear me now still? And then I'll try turning it back on again. Am I back?
Yeah, that's better.
No?
That's better.
Am I back? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe there's a bit of a lag.
No, go ahead. Keep talking.
What was I saying?
I can't remember either.
I've lost my...
You're talking about the kind of, that's right. I had said we got that comment that finally the real feminists had arrived, and you were about to...
Oh, yeah. And like the thing that's frustrating is like, because I'll see it sometimes on our posts as well. And like the reality is like, obviously, like, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not like, I mean, it's sort of been building up, but there definitely have been women speaking out on these issues for a while, obviously been constantly silenced. So it's sort of like, it's hard to get traction, but it's not like people aren't trying. So yeah, anyway, look, I can understand why people think that people haven't been speaking out because they're not aware necessarily of the silencing that's constantly happening. But
feminists are. I mean, they're looking at people like Clementine Ford to speak out on our behalf because that's who they associate with feminism. It ain't going to happen.
And that's what I mean by toxic feminism.
Yeah. So that's who I think of the feminists. And yet most grassroots feminists have been speaking out on this issue for years and years and years, and nobody's listening. It's only when someone with a little bit of a higher profile speaks out that they get the attention. So
yeah, that's right.
You're in Sydney, aren't you, Rachel?
Yep.
So do you know about this guy, Alex Greenwich? Oh no, you're frozen again.
Oh, the independent MP here?
Yeah. Can you still hear us?
Yeah. Yep, I can still hear you. Am I back?
Yep. So
yeah, what about?
Well, he's the one that's pushing for a review of New South Wales anti-discrimination laws, and with a specific message that he wants it to be working in favour of trans people. But then today because Dominic Perrottet, your premier up there, who's liberal, has spoken out in support of Kath, this independent, Alex Greenwich, is like threatening to, like, apparently he's got some deal with the Liberals that, you know, he'll support them as far as is possible. He's threatening them, saying, I'm not going to do that anymore if you don't toe the line on the bloody trans issues.
Oh, I'd missed that. Interesting.
Yeah. How, like, people talk about this vulnerable minority, and that, you know, they were saying on Insight, which is not true, that it's only 1% of the population is transgender, and they're talking about this stuff. What other social justice movement has the power to potentially overthrow the state government? None.
That's crazy. No, and look, I'm not surprised that Alex Greenwich is doing that. He's very, 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 very far left, but in the worst possible way. So like on social issues, but yeah, I actually hadn't heard about that. That's insane.
Yeah. How much power does he wield? I would have thought the Liberals have a clear majority in New South Wales, or am I wrong?
I am not sure. The thing with politics is there's often little deals that are sort of made behind the scenes, and I'm not sort of privy to all of those, but I know that that's the sort of thing that goes on, and it's, even if things don't necessarily, even if it doesn't necessarily look like they should need him, I imagine that there's been some wheeling and dealing done.
All right, last question before we go. I don't know if it's socially polite to ask this or not, but I'm going to do it anyway. Who are you going to vote for?
Honestly, I can honestly tell you that I don't know. I actually don't know. If I knew what I tell you, I'm not sure. Probably not. But I actually don't know. Like, I actually am not sure, because I mean, I've sort of been talking to different people about it, and like they're sort of saying that they're going to kind of more focus on individuals than the parties and stuff like that, because it's just, it's really, really difficult. So I'm not actually sure. Do you know who you're going to vote for yet?
Yeah, look, I'm still a bit undecided myself. Yeah.
Like, I know that for sure on these issues, the only people who've been very strong have been Liberal members. Like, obviously Senator Claire Chandler, you've got Senator Alex Antic, Catherine.
Oh, she's doing a spell on us, Ange.
Am I gone again?
Yeah, you were for a second. Yeah.
So definitely on this issue, they're looking a lot stronger. I mean, look, obviously there's still time before the election. I mean, the other parties can kind of get their act together, and then who knows. But I mean, obviously they've been the strongest on the women's sport issue anyway. So I guess we'll see. But look, it's a toughie. Yeah,
it's a bit dismal. All right, well, thanks so much for coming on, Rachel. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and so sorry for the dropouts and the internet.
It adds to the entertainment.
It was lovely to meet you, Ange, as well. I think this is the first time we've spoken, but I've sort of, now that I'm back on Twitter, especially for Catherine, I honestly, I hate that place so much. But I was like, you know what, just for this, I'm going to come back. So I've seen you on there, and you've got some great content. So I look forward to seeing more of that.
Thank you.
Cheers, Rachel. All right, we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Just need you to click. Yeah. Cool. Oh, that went well.
Yeah, I love seeing young women get into this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just because, there's this misconception out there. It's just the old feminists like me. But no, younger women. Yeah. Good.
Now, what else?
It's been a week from hell, honestly. Like, I've been quite brain fried from it, because we have to act now, because it's happening now that the media is actually paying attention, and we sort of have to. There's not many of us, particularly in our own name, who are willing to speak up on this issue. So the few of us that are able to do so are doing triple time unpaid, and we're all absolutely exhausted. So it feels like there's just so much going on, and the people that the other side are dragging out, like Hannah Mounsey, Tickle, all the usual suspects, dragging these blokes out to talk about this issue and making them look like the biggest victims and making them look like the most, harmless potential football and rugby players you've ever heard of. And I'm just there going, and these are major news channels. We're not just talking about, some backwater radio program or something like that. These blokes are being profiled in major newspapers, on major TV shows as, victims, as vulnerable minorities, as the most marginalised women ever. And it is so offensive. And we carry that because we've been doing this for so long, and now it's all up in the air. And, we don't know how the public's going to take it. We're all just fried. I'm completely fried. Spoken to quite a few other people that are feeling quite fried as well.
It's been a really busy week, 2 weeks now, actually.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. And it's people like, that are putting their public personas to this that are copying it the most too. And it seems to be women because, like Senator Antic and quite a lot of the Sky commentators, and there's a lot of blokes speaking out on this issue, particularly on the other side, but the ones that cop the abuse and the ridicule and the personal attacks are the majority are women.
Yeah, gonna have a really tough skin. I like what Rachael said about being called a TERF is a badge of honour. It kind of is. It kind of is.
See Kath in the paper yesterday. The paparazzi's camped out outside her house, right? See, the profile Kath's got now, there'd be talent agents begging to sign her, right? So she's so notorious now that even if she doesn't get in, she can hop on the Save Women's Sport horse and ride it into the sunset, right? So she has a public profile that money could not buy. Mm-hmm. And, yesterday, because we all know Kath and we know how hard this has been on her. Yesterday, the tabloids took a photo of her with this big grin on her face outside the house. She didn't have a care in the world. And I'm camping and I deliberately sneak in to look at papers that I wouldn't normally read and see what's in them. And there's Kath on the third page. And I tell you what made my heart sing. It was so good to see her with a big grin on her face as they're to everybody.
Which newspaper was it?
I don't know. I think it's Australian or one of the more conservative ones. I was just in a milk bar, actually. I went, paper, have a look, Yeah. So, but they're the little things that, because quite often you think, I've just had enough, I feel like walking away, or this is too hard, or I'm fed up with the abuse. And then you get your little moments where you just go, nah, I'm going to keep going. And we're on it. The House of Cards is wobbling here in Australia at the moment. Mm. And it's all thanks to the UK. And now we're able to get the cards and give it a good wobble with this respect my sex thing here too. So, the opportunity to strike is here. We might exhaust ourselves, but it is worth it.
Yeah. Look, with respect my sex, the campaign, I really encourage women to take part, and men, to write to candidates. If you don't get an answer, I haven't got any answers by email yet. So tomorrow what I'm going to do is ring them and ask them the questions over the phone if they put me through. It's worth a go. It's worth making these politicians aware of that there are millions of Australians that are on our side. But I'm also thinking that it might require a little bit of publicity stunts. So the other thing is to keep an eye on, in your electorate, are they having any sort of public debate between the candidates, or those sort of public events where you can go along and bravely stand up and ask the question, print off one of the flyers and stand there and hold it up and get it on camera. I'd love to see stuff like that, but other than that, I don't know, we could.
But you've made it easy for everybody because you have provided the information. It is as simple as printing it out and handing it to a politician, or posting it to a politician, or emailing it to a politician. We've done the work for you.
Yep.
Out and do it. Even if you do it anonymously, just do it. Spread the word. Put it in people's letterbox. I'm going to print out 100 of them and put them in the local letterboxes, just so people know what we're actually dealing with. That we're not just a back of TERFs. That there are real issues that are going to affect everybody. It's not just about sport. But women's rights are being decimated by this stuff, and we have to get out and do it. And you know, Stassja's made it easy for everyone. It's just cut and paste, really, or cut and print.
Yeah. I just remembered we went out for a little TERF dinner on Saturday night. Yeah.
And I shared a picture of us, and some of us couldn't be in the photo. So there was the arms with holding, you know, there's odd arms and things in there. But yeah, I uploaded a picture of us having dinner and said, oh, you know, this is, you know, with the same spirit as the J.K. Rowling lunch. And it got shared thousands and thousands of times. It's just a bunch of women having dinner in Melbourne.
That was so funny because it just happened that we ended up snacking at this comedy club, and so as soon as I realized it was a comedy club, I was like, oh, they're probably woke. And I think you asked the waiter to take a photo of us. We're holding up our little signs that say respect my sex if you want my vote, and this dickhead asks, oh, you liberal voters, are you?
Yeah. Do you know, actually, I think in the election, this is nuts, right? And I reckon the Palmer Party is going to do all right with all the cookers and the anti-vaxxers. I actually think that Clive Palmer is going to get more votes this election. He's going to get all Pauline Hanson's votes, basically, plus a whole bunch from these new people that don't trust the government, but haven't well, I don't want to say they haven't the intellectual capacity, but that's what I'm actually thinking. But, you know, people who haven't really looked at the issues. So I think that the Palmer United is going to do well. And every country town out this way and all through New South Wales and Queensland has Palmer United billboards in it.
And he's had ads on YouTube as well. But you know what was interesting, like last Saturday night when we were out for dinner, and then we were on the steps of Parliament in Melbourne, and this group of men, and was just like, oh, that, like I didn't want anything to do with them, but they were like, well, what do your signs say? What do your signs say? I was like, oh, I can't be fucked. But then we finally told them, look, we're, you know, campaigning against things like transgender women in women's sport. And they were all, yeah, totally support you. Yeah, we're with you 100% on that. You shouldn't be afraid to say that, like, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out they were anti-vaccine mandate protesters who'd been pissing on at the park.
Next to Parliament House. Oh, you know, people go, oh, you know, these TERFs are in bed with the right. Now we're in bed with the cookers.
Oh, it's so funny.
That's good. You know what will happen? Somewhere in the future, someone's going to go back and say, Miss Jones said on her dodgy YouTube channel that she was in bed with the cookers. Yeah. Imagine if you was rifling through our history looking for trouble.
I know.
You know, I've been online. You know, Facebook's been around since what, 2008 or something. They got many years to rifle through.
We would cop it big time. But you know, those guys, what were they saying? They're saying put Liberal and Labor last on your ballot.
And on vote, most of them. They said we're not voting.
Yeah. Oh, I've lost you.
Oh, geez, it's because my battery's going down flat, big.
Well, it's time to finish up anyway.
Yes.
So thank you. Good to see you again, Ange.
You too. Thank you for all you've done. You're an absolute dynamo because you're squirreling away all week. I don't think anyone watching realises how much you do behind the scenes for the whole of this movement here down in Melbourne. You know, Stassja is she's just so organised. She's really good at doing all the behind the scenes stuff. So yes, thank you. You managed to pull off this respect my sex. You know, it was basically a concept that UK women said, oh, you know, you girls want to use this. And within a week and a half, she's basically launched it. I mean, who does that?
Well, I've got to do a special shout out to Kat Kariner for building the website for us, and also to XX Rebellion. You can follow her on Facebook. She's an amazing graphic design woman. She does great work.
Thank you.
She's got a shop as well if you want to buy a cool Rad Femme t-shirt.
Yeah, stickers. Good stickers too.
Yeah. I keep forgetting to tell everyone this is now available as a podcast. If you'd rather just listen rather than watch, you can download it. I'll put the link in the description.
Then you don't get to laugh at the technical difficulties when people do, you know, freeze in funny poses and, you know, have trouble logging on, and, you know, the things that I think make amateurish YouTube videos great. The entertainment. Be really slick, and you'll remind us of these primitive days.
All right. Thanks to all our subscribers. Please like and share.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week for another election edition.
See you, everyone. Bye.